Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching Business Morning on Channels Television, and today we're looking at the recent report, that Ease of Doing Business report by the World Bank, where Nigeria was ranked 170. And I have here with me Mr. Oji Udemezue. He is a financial and management consultant. We'll be looking at some of those variables that were actually looked at this report. Good morning, Mr. Udemezue.
Good morning, and thank you.
Yeah, good to have you on the program.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's
right.
My pleasure.
Now, it's been 12 years really, since the World Bank started this Ease of Doing Business report. What is your general assessment of it all?
Yeah, my take, in looking at the general assessment, it's important to understand why these reports are being released and what benefits participating countries stand to gain from these reports. Of course, this is not the only report we get concerning economies. We have the Global Competitiveness Index report from the World Economic Forum. We have the Transparency International report, on corruption index and all of that, and several other reports. But the essence of the Ease of Doing Business report is to see how economies are doing, or the regulatory framework that exists in several economies in trying to encourage the starting and the operating of businesses, especially local limited liability companies in different countries. And this, of course, recognizing the fact that economies are driven not just by government, but for any economy to become prosperous and to progress, there must be a very strong encouraging environment for businesses to thrive. First of all, to start the business and to operate the business. So in these past 12 years, we've seen a series of reports trying to gauge how companies are doing. And Nigeria has not been doing particularly well in this report over these years. Okay, well, last year, before the methodology was changed, we were ranked 147. But looking at the way it is done now, the basis for ranking, if we were to be ranked that last year, we would have been 175, from where we have now moved to 170, which seems to be some kind of improvement. But looking at a nation that is the 26th largest economy in the world and the biggest economy in Africa, we are ranking 170 amongst 189 countries. I think it makes a very emphatic statement that Nigeria, we're not getting things right. And the earlier we start doing the right thing to promote private investment in Nigeria, to promote the private sector and the small and medium enterprises sector, that the better for us. Because the economy is sitting on gunpowder that can explode anytime. An economy that depends only on public financing to work. Without developing the small and in fact the micro, small and medium enterprises, we don't have a hope of getting this economy to where we want it to be, 2020.
Right. And what that means is that, this period of 12 years, does it mean that Nigeria, we've really not learned any lessons
in fact,
some of these things?
Quite paradoxically, these 12 years, have fallen into the era we've had democratic government, a system of government that is meant to care for the people. And then if you look at where we have been, it means that we have not made conscious effort. This report is about looking at the regulatory framework, the regulation that exists in the jurisdictions that encourage local businesses. It means that in these past 12 years, we have not done anything consciously to enhance the way businesses are started in Nigeria, the way people get electricity to run their business, the way people register their properties, the way people go about getting construction permit, the way governance, minority interests are protected, issues of, tax payments, and all of those issues that this report captures, about 11 of them, even though 10 were taken into consideration in this last report. It means that we have not, both in the legislation, in the executive government, we have not made conscious effort to bring about policies and legislations, and of course, to also implement them to ensure that people can run their businesses effectively, smoothly, and profitably in Nigeria. It is known that businesses start in Nigeria, and in 5 years, it's reported that not up to 10% of them survive. That's after they start. That is a direct correlation with this report.
Right. Before we get into those nitty-gritties, because there are some variables that would have the starting a business, dealing with construction permits, and getting electricity, registering property. Before we get to those nitty-gritties, Mauritius, of course, is an African country, and it happens to be the best in Africa when you talk about ease of doing business.
Yeah.
What lesson do you think Nigeria should actually learn from Mauritius? Because I think for some time Mauritius has just maintained that position.
For me, the lesson is that size is deceptive. It's not about the size of your economy. In fact, if you do maybe a thorough econometric analysis, trying to look at the size of economies and how they rank in this report, you may find that size is not the issue. Of course, number one economy in this report is Singapore. How big is Singapore? A small island. So the lesson for Nigeria, looking at small Mauritius, small in quotes, is that size is insignificant. It's not how big you are, but how well you are using your size. Because Nigeria is an economy that has huge potential to, if we get things right, to take a proper, there are only about 11 countries in the world that have over 100 million people. And those are the places that we should be seeing activities. Those are the places where people are rushing to go and start business because they are consumers, they are potential consumers. Okay, so for me, looking at Mauritius and where they are, I think the 26th or 28th position in Africa, and then we are far down at 170. It's a shame. So it means that all the people who are concerned, in making sure we have proper, an appropriate environment for business should wake up to their responsibility. Perhaps we need to send people to Mauritius to see what they're doing. Maybe you can say that because they are small, it's easier for them to implement their policies and regulations. But what policies have we consciously established, and what have we done to ensure that these things are implemented? These are the lessons for us.
All right. Now, 2 states were actually polled in this year's report. That's Lagos and Kano, and I guess that's the first time they are using 2 states, to get those polls. It's always been one. But I still wonder, Lagos and Kano, do you think they represent what is obtainable in all the states?
Of course, in terms of gross domestic product, state domestic products, or the state's gross domestic product, Lagos represents the largest economy, in Nigeria. And of course, even though Kano doesn't rank, next to it immediately, but Kano represents another big economy that you can compare. Of course, Lagos being in the south, it's only fair that you have another state, outside the southern part of the country, where you can look at rivers, delta, and the rest of them as also big. But why are they big? They are big because of oil. If you look at real economic activities going on after Lagos, it's right to talk about Kano beyond geopolitical or regional considerations. So looking at in the last report, the World Bank's report considered 2 cities for any economy that had over 100 million population. So for Nigeria, Lagos and Kano made that. But in the sub-national reports that I studied, you find that in some improvement that we've seen in the past 1 or 2 years, Lagos did not even show up. It was states like Ogun State, Niger State, I think River State, and 1 or 2 others that showed some slight improvement in some regulatory framework, especially when it has to do with legal, judicial systems in enforcing the rights in a contract.
Yeah. And
also in maybe legislation that supports business, taxes and all of that. So these are where we have seen improvement in the sub-national report of this of doing business.
Yeah.
So Lagos and Kano represent what happened in Nigeria. If you can't get it right in Lagos, you can't get it right in Kano. It's difficult to get it right elsewhere.
Okay. Now the bank said the report did not measure all aspects of the business environment that mattered to firms and investors. It talked about quality of fiscal management, other aspects of macroeconomic stability
and all of
the
that.
level of skills in the labor force, or the resilience of financial systems. Now, would we have fared better if these other things were put into consideration?
We would not. Because those are the things that are captured in, I mentioned earlier before I said that, this report is just looking at business, even as it concerns small scale enterprises, small limited liability companies. if you're looking at a report that will capture macroeconomic, issues, infrastructure, institutional framework, corporate governance, and all the, issues that have to do with the whole economy, you'll be looking at the GCI, the Global Completeness Index.
Yeah.
And if you look at there, Nigeria didn't do any better compared to, about 144 countries ranked in that report. So anywhere you look at it, we have challenges. We must, it was a bit funny that the National Council on Competitiveness, was just quarreling with that report that it doesn't capture what's happening in Nigeria. But the issue is that what are we actually doing to promote, general productivity and prosperity in the economy? That's the reason why an economy that's one of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world, growing at about 6%, every year, is not able to provide employment for its citizens. And then we have on a cajoled and mocked everywhere that we have jobless growth. So why are we having jobless growth? Why haven't the economic managers paid attention to what we need to do to ensure that our growth gives rise to employment? It's only when you pay attention to the private sector that you can achieve that. And private sector is driven by businesses, most importantly, small and medium enterprises. These are people who employ, people. They employ labor at those 2 people, 3, but they multiply it in millions. Government can at most generate 1 million jobs in a year if they try so hard. But this SME sector can generate millions of jobs in a year if we make an environment conducive for individuals to innovatively and creatively, build, start, and operate their businesses successfully.
All right. Okay, we'll have to just take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll have to look at some of those specifics that World Bank looked at, talked about starting a business. And I recall that the Minister of Trade and Investment, Olusegun Agbaje, keep saying the time you have to register a business, to start a business, has actually come down. And from the report, well, it represents that, but I don't know if perhaps we could have done a better.
When we come back, we can talk about what are the critical issues that challenge businesses, both in starting and operating.
Yeah, why we put out those specifics.
There are several issues, and we need to start dealing with them. Entrepreneurship, linking that to the university system, the educational system, and see where we can have a good handshake to ensure that people have even understand what it takes to run a business. Because ignorance and illiteracy could be part of the problem.
All right.
When you don't know how to register a business, how to go about dealing with taxes, that could aggravate matters. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Well, we'll take a quick break now. When we return, we will continue with that conversation. To stay with us.